Okay, so this video lecture will be for our module number 2. So this is entitled Taxation of Individuals. So for this module, we will be discussing about the taxation for individuals in the Philippines. So you will learn about the different types or classification of our individual taxpayers and how they are being taxed, and also to solve for their respective taxable income and tax dues. So for the learning outcomes, we have the following. So at the end of this module, you will be able to define the individual taxpayers and their related terms that is used in taxation. State the sources also of the income of these individual taxpayers. To list the sources of passive income and the state also the final tax rates. Define the allowable deductions from their gross income, identify the kinds of personal exemption, and also to define and compute taxable income and tax due for each type of individual taxpayer. So for our content, we will be discussing these topics. First is the classification of our individual income taxpayers, the sources of income, categories of income and tax rates, passive income, allowable deductions, and the taxable income and tax due computation. So to start with, let us discuss about the classification of our individual income taxpayers. So basically, in the Philippines, we classify our individual income taxpayers into 4. Okay, so we have 4 classifications. So the first classification is resident citizen. Okay, so when we say resident citizen, this is a citizen of the Philippines and also residing here in the Philippines. Meaning, you are a Filipino citizen and you are living here also in the Philippines. So under the 1987 Constitution, we have the following guidelines, okay, or guidelines, to identify if you are a citizen of the Philippines. Okay, so of course, first is if you are a citizen of the Philippines at the time of the adoption of the 1987 Constitution, your father or mother are citizens also of the Philippines, you are born before January 17, 1973 of Filipino mothers who elect Philippine citizenship upon reaching the age of maturity, and if you are naturalized in accordance with the law. When you say naturalized, you are not a Filipino, or your parents may not be a Filipino, or you may have been born in other countries, but because of the process or due process, and if you really want to become a Filipino citizen, and by virtue of our law, case you have been naturalized, but basically by birth you are not a Filipino citizen, but because of the law allows you, okay, for certain requirements also for you to meet, okay, so you have been naturalized as resident or citizen, of the Philippines. So please take note that this classification of individual income taxpayer is very important in taxation, because this will determine what taxable income, or what income of these income taxpayers are taxable. Okay, so that's why we need to classify the taxpayers, because taxpayers may be earning income not only here in the Philippines but also abroad or from other countries. So that's why if you will be classified in this income taxpayer, so we will determine what are the taxable income or the income that is taxable for you. Okay, so that is for resident citizen. So again, if you are a resident citizen, you are a citizen of the Philippines and you are living here also in our country. Okay, for the second classification, so we have the non-resident citizen. If you are a non-resident citizen, basically you are a citizen of the Philippines, you are a Filipino citizen, but you are living in other countries. Okay, So, a citizen of the Philippines who establishes to the satisfaction of the commissioner that his physical presence abroad with a defined or definite intention to reside therein. Meaning, you are a Filipino citizen, but still you have the choice, or it is by choice probably, that you want to reside in other countries, but for a definite period only, and probably after a period of time you want to go back here in our country. Okay, but again, when we say non-resident citizen, you are a Filipino citizen, but you are temporarily residing in other countries. Okay, so we have here the different requisites. Okay, so a citizen of the Philippines who lives during a taxable year to reside abroad, either as immigrant or for employment. Okay, so our OFWs on a permanent basis. So you are considered to be a non-resident citizen. Another is a citizen of the Philippines who works and derives income from abroad and whose employment therein requires him to be physically present abroad most of the time during the taxable year. So you are again classified under non-resident citizen. Another is if you are a citizen who has been previously considered as non-resident citizen and then arrives in the Philippines at any time during the taxable year to reside permanently here. Okay, so you will also be treated as non-resident citizen for the taxable year. Okay, because you have arrived just recently. Okay, with respect to your income for the current taxable year. But if you want to reside permanently thereafter here in the Philippines, so you can be reclassified later on as resident citizen. Okay, so another is the taxpayer shall submit also the proof to the commissioner of BIR to show his intention of leaving the Philippines to reside permanently abroad or to return and to reside here in the Philippines as the case may be. But again, when we say non-resident citizen, you are a Filipino citizen and you are residing or living abroad for maybe for a permanent residence abroad or for work, like our OFW who will later on be coming back after their contract. Okay, but the point here is that during the taxable year, most of the time you are abroad. The third classification is the resident alien. When we say alien, this is we refer here I mean as the foreigners. Okay, so an alien who lives, or a foreigner who lives in the Philippines with no definite intention as to his stay, meaning that person or that foreigner is not sure how long he will stay here in the Philippines. But presently, he intends to or he is presently residing in the Philippines for most of the time during the taxable year. So that is resident foreigner, meaning he is not a Filipino citizen, but he is living here in the Philippines. Okay. Another is if that foreigner comes to the Philippines for a definite purpose, which is in its nature would require an extension or extended stay in this country, and also that and makes his home temporarily here in the Philippines. Okay, so he will also be considered or classified as resident alien or foreigner. And the third is an alien who, or a foreigner who has acquired a residence here in the Philippines and also retains his status as such until he abandons the same and actually departs from the Philippines. So meaning he has no definite intention also to stay, or in this case the foreigner is not sure if how long he will stay here in the Philippines. But the point here is that a foreigner will be classified as resident alien if he is not a Filipino citizen and he is residing or living here in the Philippines. So that is a resident alien. For the fourth classification of income taxpayers, so we have non-resident alien or NRA. So here, this is a foreigner who comes to the Philippines for a definite purpose, okay, which in its nature may be promptly accomplished, meaning he is a foreigner and he has to stay only here in the Philippines for a short period of time. Okay, so he will not stay here for most of the time for the taxable year. Probably, we have here later on how many days will we consider a foreigner to be a non-resident alien. Okay, so one who may either be, or a non-resident alien is one who may either be, letter A, engaged in trade or business in the Philippines. So that is what we call NRA ETB, non-resident alien engaged in trade or business. Okay, so if he is engaged in business or if he just only comes here in the Philippines for the purpose of engaging in trade or business and not for residing or living here permanently or for a longer period of time, then he will be classified as non-resident alien. Letter B, if the non-resident alien is not engaged in trade or any business. So this is what we call NRA-NETB, non-resident alien not engaged in trade or business. So meaning he is just like a tourist, for example, here in the Philippines, because he just comes here not for the purpose of residing in the Philippines, and he is not also engaged in trade or business. So most probably he is a tourist. Okay, so here a non-resident alien who shall come to the Philippines and stay for an aggregate of more than 180 days. Okay, so meaning you will be considered, or a foreigner could be considered a non-resident alien not engaged in trade or business if he will stay in the Philippines for less than 180 days. But if his stay will be more than 180 days, then he shall be classified as non-resident alien engaged in trade or business. So that is our point of determination. Okay, so those are for the classification of our individual income taxpayer. So resident citizen, you are a Filipino citizen and you are also living here in the Philippines. Non-resident citizen, you are a Filipino citizen but you are living most of the time abroad. Okay, your physical presence most of the time during the taxable year is in abroad. Okay, so you are considered to be non-resident citizen. Resident alien, you are a foreigner but you are living here in the Philippines for a longer period of time or most of the time during the taxable year. Non-resident alien, you are a foreigner and your purpose of coming here in the Philippines is not to live here but to do business, or not to engage in business but to be a tourist, for example. Okay, so if you are engaged in trade or business, so you will be classified as non-resident alien engaged in trade or business. While if you do not engage in trade or business, you will be considered as non-resident alien not engaged in trade or business, following our rule of 180 days. Okay, so you will be classified either as engaged or not engaged in trade or business. So those are the 4 classifications of our individual income taxpayers here in the Philippines.